So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our session, the Circular Packaging Challenge, another of our parallel breakout sessions as part of the Circular Materials Conference 2021. We've got a really interesting lineup of speakers who are all grappling with the emerging circular packaging challenge, really significant area. And the packaging challenges got even more significant over the last 18 months with the pandemic and everyone ordering everything online. So we have some very interesting challenges which perhaps set trends for the future. We're going to hear from 5 speakers, and then there's going to be an opportunity for you to connect with one of those speakers in a breakout room before we come back to plenary. So there'll be a chance for you to have a bit of direct dialogue with a speaker of your choice. But to start with, I'd like to invite Peter Mellgren, CEO of TMR, the Take Back scheme for packages for Sweden. Maybe just to offer a few introductory remarks to the session we're going to be having. Peter, great to have you with us, and over to you.
Thank you. You can see my presentation, I hope.
I can.
Thank you. We're sort of trying to figure this out now. Something here, trying to manage. All right. Thank you very much. I'm a co-founder of TMR. I'll give a brief micro introduction about us at TMR and the challenges we see and how we think we can address them together. So we started operations in 2005 as a competitor on a formerly monopolist market. We're based in Stockholm, but we have operations all over Sweden. And we work with all aspects of producer responsibility for packaging, as we are a compliance scheme. We have a design for recyclability team, a new production line coming on for this year for recycling of plastics. Last year we introduced a new packaging collection system called TMR Pickup Service. I'll come back to that. So I only have 5 minutes here, so please contact us if you want to learn more or visit our showroom. So I will briefly go through the basics for circularity for packaging as we see it. There are, as I believe most here agree on, 3 key factors to be addressed to accomplish circularity for packaging. There is a focus on plastic packaging today, although all single-use packaging are concerned with this challenge. There is also a 4th factor lurking behind the next corner, that's reuse. At present, we are all struggling to reach circularity for packaging. We might, in theory anyway, be bypassed by reuse systems that actually will make our efforts today obsolete. We're fine with that development if it happens, and we'll try to be a part of it. As we go for key factor 1, there will be packaging design. Much of today's plastic packaging is, as you know, not possible to recycle. The same goes for some composite packaging and packaging with combined materials. Unfortunately, this sometimes also goes for newly introduced super smart packaging materials unheard of before. Great ideas, but simply not recyclable. So can these problems be addressed and avoided? Well, combining the knowledge from the 2 separate worlds of recycling and packaging design makes it possible to avoid some of these problems. Making the right choice from the beginning is the key. A lot of good work is being done in many companies today. Our team at TMR, with both packaging design and recycling competence can bridge the knowledge gap for you. So if we go to the second key factor about recycling, despite all the design efforts, corresponding progress of the recycling industry is much needed. The household packaging on the market has a significantly more important role to play than being just easy to recycle. For example, 90% of the carbon footprint from food comes, as we all know, from the food production. We can therefore not fiddle with a product's shelf life trying to make the packaging easier to recycle. This means we will have to develop solutions for hard to recycle packaging for the foreseeable future. There are many initiatives to solve this challenge. Chemical recycling, mentioned one. One of our initiatives is with financial help from the Swedish government and Klimatklivet and Nestlé. We're now setting up a production line with a new technique to mechanically recycle complex plastic packaging. Packaging that is today being incinerated in most markets. The long-term goal for us is to close the loop for plastic packaging, of course, for the plastic recycled material to become new packaging. But we all know how complex that is, but still we have to start somewhere. And we think we can contribute to that start with recycling these hard to recycle plastics in our new production line. Okay, and the third factor, of course, these are pretty obvious factors, but they have to be addressed. All efforts just described will be futile unless supported by efficient collection. About 40% of the packaging is never sorted out or collected in Sweden. It remains in the general household waste stream. The government has therefore decided, as part of adapting to the extended producer responsibility, that all Swedes shall have their packaging collected at home by the producers. At present, plan to be introduced 2023. This will take time to get ready and to reach the finish line. So more has to be done and has to be done now. Apart from all traditional collection solutions we work with, we have launched a new concept for packaging collection at home, combining transport and logistics smartness from the e-commerce market with take-back of used household packaging. The concept is called Pickup Service. Please visit our homepage for more information on this if you're interested. We believe Pickup Service to be well, in a small way anyway, a game changer for the way we traditionally think about the waste management. However, most importantly, we're hoping for the concept to help to change the way we, that is you and I as consumers, think about used packaging. It is not waste, it is a valuable resource. So, well, that's okay. Thank you. That was a short introduction on the 3 key factors and a little about us. Thank you for being part of this important dialogue on circularity for packaging. And then back to Peter.
It's the Peter and Peter show. That's fantastic. Thank you very much. Just to help frame our thinking, and what we're going to have to follow is a number of people very much involved in trying to find solutions within this area. And we're going to start, first of all, I'm delighted to welcome Linder, who's head of Stena Circular Consulting, and is exercised very much on the issue of how do we design for recyclability. And that was the first point that Peter was making. So if we get the design right, then everything flows with greater ease. So Mats, great to have you with us. Looking forward to your presentation, and I assume we'll also have an electric guitar accompaniment at some point.
Let's hope not, but let's hope there will be a presentation at least. Thank you very much, Peter, for that introduction. I hope you can now see my presentation.
Yes, that's good.
I'm actually going to ask or probe the question from a little bit of a different angle. Can we really design for recyclability, or how far can we take that? I'm sure many of you, I've met many of you in the session. I've certainly met several of the speakers in the last few years working with this issue. So you'll know that my name is Mats Linder. What you might not know is that I very recently joined Stena Circular Consulting as head of consulting. Stena Circular Consulting is basically a department within Stena Recycling that is working to take us not just from a linear economy to a recycling economy, but also further away towards the circular economy. We talk a lot about how we're currently linear and we need to go circular, but if we're only by that meaning we need to recycle more, we're not really all the way there. Stena is one of the leading companies in helping companies and societies be more like a recycling economy, but has realized like many of you probably, that we need much more systemic change in order to go all the way towards a circular economy. And what we want to do with Stena Circular Consulting is to be the preferred end-to-end partner for developing those circular business solutions. And we're really excited to be positioned where we are embedded in one of the sort of strongest pools of knowledge when it comes to materials, while also having expert in design, management consulting, as well as waste management to service this industry. Broadly, we offer services in everything from circular strategy and transformation down towards product design, development, assessment as to what the kind of circular fitness is for a particular product or offering, as well as optimizing the waste that does get produced as part of manufacturing or end of life. In my previous life, I worked a lot in plastic packaging, and most of these insights are based on some of that recent work. Many of you will have seen this picture before by now. If we just look at plastic packaging, it's almost totally linear as of now. And this means we're losing roughly $80 to $120 billion worth of material every year, simply because we have designed a system to create this waste. And most of the activities we do here treat really only the symptoms of this linearity, not the root cause. In fact, if you look at all the plastics that has ever been made, you're tallying up something like 8.5 billion tons by now globally, and only about 0.1 million tons, or that is 100,000 tons of that amount, is still in use today somewhere. So we haven't done a very good job in actually keeping plastics materials in the economy so far. The question then is, can we design out these root causes and actually transition this value chain to be more of a circular model? Well, if we look at packaging specifically, I'd say you can think of it as there being two distinct and different strategies towards better recycling and recyclability. You either look at the packaging itself and try to make it fit the recycling system better. There's certainly a lot to do there. You can also look, of course, at the system and try to fit what's being put on the market, or improve the system to better handle the materials and the complexity there. And both of these things are of course valid. The challenge is that if you're changing both at the same time, you're basically aiming at the moving target. What system are you designing if you know that in the next 10 years there might be between 3 and 5 completely new materials put on the market? You don't know for which applications, you don't know where, you don't know really when, you don't know in what volumes. What do you do? Same thing if you design, if you want to introduce new packaging designs, maybe new materials. What system are you really designing for? If you know that behind the corner you have various forms of chemical recycling, you have new collection systems, you have new sorting technology. It's extremely complex to kind of address this systemic issue. What we do know is that the recycling system as it is today is actually quite inefficient. I've sorted here the different basic plastic materials we use for packaging in a ranking for sort of high value to low value in recycling. And by and large in Europe, we really only recycle to a large extent 3 different grades: PET bottles, rigid HDPE, and rigid PP, to any kind of appreciable extent. And even when we do, we lose significant volumes. If you look at PET bottles, roughly only 50% of them are sorted for recycling in Europe. And of what is recycled, even if this is like the gold standard, the highest purity streams of plastic packaging, only 30% of what is recycled is actually recycled back into new packaging. Nothing wrong, of course, with recycling it into something else, but it's also kind of a telltale sign that we're losing quality, we're losing integrity along the lines. And if we cannot base new packaging on recycled materials, we will have to make packaging out of virgin materials, and that is not really helping us close the loop. So there are many different technological advances to help address this, but you might not be surprised to see that most of these, in fact, consider recycling technologies rather than packaging or material design, at least those that are sort of at some kind of scale able to address these issues currently. The one design exception I'm including here is that you can do tweaks to the already well-functioning packaging in order to increase their value in recycling and the value on the secondary market. I'm thinking about simple things as decoloring bottles. There is a quite significant price differential actually between uncolored rPET and colored rPET. And if you aggregate your figures and removed the colors for half of the colored PET that is still that is out there in bottles, you could save the industry $3 billion worldwide just by doing that, because you are increasing the value of the material after it's been used. It's kind of a difficult conversation to take with companies that base their entire brand value on a particular color, but it is a conversation that we need to have. Apart from that, you'll see on the slide now just various different technical solutions for improving recycling. We're seeing depolymerization, solvent-based purification, thermal decomposition. There's a lot of activity right now. A lot of bets are being placed on these technologies taking off. The question we need to ask ourselves, though, is this kind of, how far will this take us towards the packaging utopia where everything we put on the market actually has a destination afterwards. If we look at it a bit differently, there is kind of a stark realization that even if we increase recycling massively over the next decade, we'll still end up with a lot of waste being created. And one of the main reasons for this is that there's two main reasons. First of all, we're starting from a really low base. In Sweden, even though we have one of the better functioning recycling systems, we get back roughly 16% of the material we put on the market, leaving us with roughly or a bit more than 300,000 tons of plastic waste in the end. And even if we would, with all these improvements that have already been mentioned by Peter, if we did meet EU targets for 2030 and recycled 55% instead, because the underlying growth of packaging as projected will still end up with 250,000 tons of unrecycled waste, while having to recycle five times more material than we do now. In Sweden, we've just been sort of one central facility in Motala for taking care of all packaging we have. That capacity will not be enough if we are to reach these EU targets. So it means we probably have to invest in 2 to 3 more equivalent facilities, and they all cost them 260 or so million each. Are we ready to do that? Is the question. And even if we do, what have we actually gained if we're still producing 250,000 tons of unrecycled waste? I'm going to finish this by kind of looking a little bit under the hood for what the alternative solution would be. And we're now kind of going towards that fourth factor that Peter talked about. I would go as far as say that this is the first factor. A report that you should really read, unless you haven't already, was published last year, called Breaking the Plastics Wave. Look at all the different ways in which we could address plastic leakage. And interesting, what this report found is that one of the most significant levers in order to reduce plastic waste is reduction of plastic material, or I should say reduction of single-use plastics, through reuse model, through elimination, by kind of designing out the need for packaging for certain applications, etc. They also happen to be the most cost efficient. They actually have a negative cost on the cost curve if you compare all of these different solutions. So unless we do something to kind of lower that pillar of increasing single-use plastic by 2030, I don't think that there's any design solutions in the world that can, make this work simply by recycling. So in the end, my question, can we design for recycling, should probably be, should we only design for recycling, or should we do more? I'm going to stop there and thank you for your attention, and looking forward to discuss later.
Mats, thank you very much. Some fascinating, if somewhat salutary figures you presented to us, some interesting possibilities moving forwards. And again, with this session, if you'd like to follow up the conversation with Mats, then you'll be able to go into a room with him after we've heard from our other speakers. This is a world very much where innovation is the key. And we're going to hear now from RISE, which is Sweden's Research Institute and Innovation Partner, who have a wonderful, lofty innovation manifesto, which says we want to lower the transition barriers to unleash the power of ideas, creativity and innovation towards circular packaging systems. So we have two of its staff with us this afternoon who are very much involved in this packaging area. Anne Lorentzon, who's project manager in sustainability and product safety with a focus on packaging. Great to see you, Anne. And also Tatjana Kapenja, who's the project manager for sustainability and digitalization at RISE. So a pair of formidable brains doing exciting work and very interesting in turning lofty ambition into delivery. So great to have you both with us, and interested to hear how you are rethinking and getting others to rethink the packaging system. Over to you. I think Anne first, is it? Great. Just need to unmute on the way.
There I am. Sorry, thank you for that nice introduction. Yes, we will talk about some of the packaging challenges. But as usual, I thank you for that nice presentation you did, Mats, and we have worked a little bit together, especially with this manifesto you mentioned. So, Peter, you mentioned. So we will coming back to that later. Also, you will remember some of the slides coming on. But we're starting with the challenge. I think packaging. I work with packaging for 35 years, and I think it's so interesting, and I think it's so important to have it in the circle systems, because it's a huge amount of materials, and it's going in quite quick circles, have a short lifespan. And we have this legislation of recycled materials, packaging materials, since middle of 90s, and here they have the figures for plastic and paper, which are the two biggest packaging materials, and then the targets have been increasing all the time. And here you have the new targets to 2025 and 2030. And as Mats mentioned, the plastic recycling today is about just 16%. So of course this will be a huge challenge to reach the target of 55% just in 4 years for plastic. For paper it look a little bit better, but when you look at the recycling of paper last years, you can see the amount of recycling have been flattering. So to reach these higher levels will be actually quite challenging even for paper. Another challenge is the next slide, thanks, is also when you actually see what's happening when you doing several trips, which you're doing with packaging material because it's a short lifespan. Plus, aluminium beverage cans used to be the best in class packaging material because it's depositively valuable material, high collection values and so on. But if we look at we put out 100 aluminium cans on the market, and you will probably collect 95% here in Sweden. We have a good question figure of that. And you will have some losses during the process. So you will end up about 92% is preserved and going back to be new beverage cans. That sounds quite good. But if you're doing that 10 times, you're ending up, you just have 44% preserved of the original materials. So you have 56% of the aluminium is lost after 10 times. And that goes quite quickly when you're talking with this short lives life-lived materials. And this was the best-in-class example. So the sad thing is for EU average is the collecting of the recycling of aluminium is just 57%. So after 10 times, you have less than 1% of the aluminium bag still there. Yes, we can take the next slide. And yes, this slide Mats already presents so really good. So I don't think I don't have to explain that again. And I give the word to Tatjana to continue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne, for problematizing about the huge gap we're facing towards meeting the circular packaging goals 2030, and also about the complexity of the challenge. So now let us step into the future, which can look different depending on what strategies and actions we will take or not take already today. So the basis for this scenario analysis was the what-if method, where we looked at probability of different trends and developments to happen towards 2030 and how the packaging system would evolve there. So in the scenario 1 called stuck in the mud, the 2030 is pretty much the same as 2020. And after much focus on plastics legislation until now, we switched there to the period of tougher economic situation with politics being extremely nationalistic. And all of this actually paralyzes the ambitious investments into circular innovation, so into technologies, into business models and design improvements. So basically in this scenario, we are stuck with little progress towards packaging circularity. And in this scenario 2, the blame game, there is a lot of talking, there are visions, but little action. So governments here get frustrated and impose stricter legislations, which are sometimes quite short-sighted, maybe not fair even. So forced to comply, here brands and companies, they face high taxes, bans, bureaucratic reporting, and by that profit losses. And also the consumers, they blame the industry for increased packaging waste and want more action. So indeed, it's the real blame game scenario. And right now, it seems that we're actually heading there with all the bans, with all the taxes to comply with, instead of giving all our major efforts on innovating together. And of these 4 identified outcomes, only one, the circular dome, has a chance to enable the transition to a comprehensive circular packaging economy. Here we have more stringent European legislation in place, and this actually by the encouragement from businesses, business leaders, consumers, and other stakeholders, and everybody's engaged. We see many innovations, many initiatives supported by investments. So if the packaging industry wants to avoid serious regulatory risks and cuts in profits, it must, 1, rethink business and to accelerate innovation towards a circular down scenario far beyond the incremental changes. This actually implies going out of the comfort zone in the terms of efforts we put so far, while actually at the same time, this offers huge opportunities and savings. So on the left side here, on the paying side, as much as 50% reduction in virgin plastic input is required to address the plastic leakage. Also, the plastics and waste management industries need to quadruple its R&D, so fourfold the R&D agenda than of today. And on the benefit side, we see different ways of doing businesses. So by new business models, switching to bio-based renewable materials, and which offers and unlocks huge savings in terms of money and in terms of emission savings and new jobs. So basically, we want to circulate the packaging materials we do need, and we also want to eliminate or replace the materials we don't need. And here we invite you to join us in challenging the status quo. So here is our innovation manifesto. We want to lower the transition barriers to unleash the power of ideas, creativity, and innovation towards circular packaging systems. This is because today's packaging systems will not deliver on 2030 targets. We need to accelerate innovation to much higher levels. And to begin with, we have identified 2 ambitious initiatives that would catalyze this type of innovation by enabling more rapid R&D, by experiments with prototyping, and also upscaling of circular packaging solutions. So one ambitious initiative here is a packaging design guidelines with value analysis. Another is a circular packaging arena, which you will hear about from us soon, so stay tuned on the Rise wave. But now I leave over to Anne for more exciting details on the first initiative.
Thank you. Yes, this circular packaging value calculator, or the tool, which you usually say very quickly here when we talk about it, is some kind of trying to explain all the cost during the whole packaging value cycle, both the direct cost, which you usually calculate, but also the indirect cost, the cost the society or others are taking now, which are not the actors in the value chain, the packaging value chain is paying for today, but could be taxes, could be fees in the future. And of course, you have to care about the costs. They are there. Someone has to take it. So it's some kind of trying to measure all costs on the same yardstick. And we're showing this in 3 phases: a before phase, and during phase, and after use phase. And in the before use phase is the direct costs in blue, and during is in green, and after in brown. And the yellow parts is just the indirect cost, which you're not calculating today. With the indirect cost, I mean environmental costs as carbon dioxide, social cost, littering, and so on. And this is some kind of comparable as a LCA tool, but you got it in money instead. And hopefully that will be more easy to understand and get one yardstick, as I said. I put this result in a circle, but anyway, you have this stripped in the end is actually you get an income when you sell the recycled materials. That should actually not be in the circle. It's actually doing the circle less, because there's this example is calculated for a cardboard corrugated box, So of course it's you got some money for the recycled material when it's used. So this is just one of the tools we have for actually be able to see if I change my product packaging design or the process or the business model, how will that affect the cost throughout the packaging value circle. So thank you very much. And in the bottom here on this slide, you can see the link to where you can find the manifesto, and you can download it there.
And Tatjana, thank you very much indeed for those presentations and also for the work you're doing. I know you have to head off to another meeting, so won't be in one of the breakout rooms, but people can easily navigate their way to Rise and follow and engage with what you're doing. So wish you very much good fortune as you try and take these approaches forward and ways to make complexity reasonably simple or as simple as possible for those trying to make the transition. Thank you very much for your presentations.
Thank you so much, Peter.
So IKEA has placed itself full and center stage with spotlights shining on it in all directions with its credentials and its ambitions around circularity. Quite right, very exciting. And we have a friend to the circularity movement, Per Stoltz, with us, who is sustainability leader at the Ingka group. Per, every time I meet you, there's been another evolution, development, challenge. Packaging is a huge game in town for you, and just really interesting to hear some of the emerging developments that you are grappling with and maybe taking a lead on, because as part of this whole conference, we are feeling that there is a Nordic leadership across the globe on this, and IKEA and Ingka Group are very much part of that leading pack. So great to have you with us, and interesting to hear some of your further thoughts and actions.
Thank you, Peter. Very nice to be here. Good day to all of you. And I really hope I can live up to Peter's expectations. We meet quite often, so let's see here. Peter, you can give me feedback afterwards if I've done. I will talk a little about Circular IKEA and why and what we're doing there, and also then come in on what is the packaging, or I would say even packaging systems as a role in this transition that we are on to. We call it Circular IKEA. There is no, intrinsic value of circularity if you just think about the concept, but we do believe it's the one of the most important tools to enable people to live within the limits of our planet. If we apply this right, we have impact on climate, we have impact on biodiversity, on water resources, and also social impact. So it's a very powerful tool, and and this tool we believe will be one of the bigger change driver inside IKEA for the future. Let's see if I can manage. Yep, there. And why are we doing this then? And we briefly touched upon, the big impact that it has on climate and resources. But it's also about really changing customer habits, attitudes as well. Something like the importance of ownership is changing, especially if you go into the younger ages. And that is actually one of the potential business models for circular economy. So service instead of ownership is really a big impact here as well. And also then linked to the economic perspective, if we think that we would continue to grow using virgin raw material and doing businesses as possible, it's quite clear of just looking and making some calculation and seeing what will the cost levels of raw materials be in the future, and see that we will not be in the position that we need to be when we want to meet the many people with the thin wallets. So there is definitely an economic perspective. And this is easy to say. I mean, transition to circular economy, it takes 2 seconds to say, but it is extremely complex transition, and it costs all over the company. So each and every function is involved and needs to be part of this transition. It's about how we produce and procure products. It's about how we design, and definitely how we meet the customers in new business models. But a little more about that later. And we have set off some targets for 2030 as IKEA. And these are the ones that you see here in front of you. And it's talking about the products for sure. We have implemented circular design principles in all our products, development processes. And going through all the products, which are many, we will be in 2030 in a position to say that all our products are being developed with circular principles. And as we are in packaging here now, discussing packaging, when we talk about products, we include the product packaging, and that is super important to have that total perspective when you do the product development. We also talk about materials, so renewable and recyclable, of course, also for the packaging. We talk about new business models, and we will have a look at that in just a few seconds. And then the fourth one, which is really about how to do it. And the commitment is really that we know that we cannot do this by ourselves. We need to join forces and work together to reach the goals. So if we just a few words about design for recyclability. We heard just from the previous speakers the importance of design. And here is really a comprehensive watch on how we design products and packaging for circularity. It has, of course, to do with recycling, design for recycling, but also design for recycled material, which is as well important. But it has also to do with the right choice of materials, which we believe is super relevant as well in packaging. And also then, when it comes to business model, and here I will do a little more deep dive here with you guys today, because this is most probably less known of these areas. There is no ready-made solution for how to implement circular business model. There are ideas, there are tests. So we are ongoing in really a process of testing and evaluating new models. And these new models, they need really to fulfill three big things. It should be possible to do, for sure. So feasibility, can this be done? Is it something that the customer actually wants? So is it desirable for the customer? And is it viable for us as a company? Does it make economic and business sense to do this? And all of this needs to come together in creating a solution that is actually good for the customer, good for the environment, and good also for the business. So we can scale this at big volumes. And this is not an easy process. I have now a flow chart on how we normally do this project. And it is, again, a really long process of understanding and creating this feasibility, desirability balance between the different solutions that we can offer. But and it can be quite a stressful beginning, as you see in this chart, but it goes towards a more clear picture. And this is really, really often done in co-creation, in collaboration with partners and customers to really find this balance. And we can see one example of such a project, what could come out of this slightly confused the process in the beginning and leading them to a solution. So like IKEA's first second-hand shop in Rethink next to Stena. But all of these new business models, they need some support. And here we come into, I would say, the packaging part of it. So everything needs to be supported by packaging. And we are in a transition here as well, really into the substitution of materials of packaging as well as for products. So we talked a lot about plastic. Plastic is a good material in the right place, but if it is very much single use, then, and with the figures that we have heard of recycling, then it's really questionable if it should be there unless there is a very good reason to have it, like for instance for food products. But we are in a transition to phase out plastic components in our packaging, go for more renewable, but of course we should bear in mind that the renewables should be sustainably managed before they come into our flow as well. Talking about packaging, and I mean, most packaging today is one way, so single use. We could not talk about circular economy without exploring the reuse part. And what you see here is actually at least a trial from our side for packaging that could go to the customer home and then back. So it's a foldable packaging with a hard top and hard bottom that is designed to go back and get new pieces and then go out to the customer as well. And here, talking about two ways, so packaging, it's also interesting to lift the view a little up and think about a circular economy where product starts to go around in circles. So if we think about secondhand, then the product needs to leave the customer and go somewhere to be sold secondhand. Or if we talk about product as a service, where the product circulates among many users, we have to start to think about packaging that can handle this. So it's not only about a flat pack furniture for IKEA furniture going one way, but we need to really take a view on how the products come back to us as well. So what is the packaging that will protect the product going back? And then just a few last words around what is surrounding the packaging. The packaging doesn't live by its own. It is surrounded by a logistic system, a transport system, which is also equally important to bring in a circular way. So when we talk about first and last mile, the importance of zero emission vehicles and vehicles that are prepared for taking both the first and last mile of our products. And also then, if we look at the broader logistics system, like in this picture, you can see this is really a system that has been optimized to do one thing, is to provide products out to the customer, but not to take something back in this flow. So here is definitely something that needs to happen to enable a circular business model. So how would that look like in the future? How can we take care of things that actually comes back and maybe have to stay in stock before it goes to the next customer? And as I mentioned, we do not have all the answers. We are on the journey. One thing, however, we know for certain. So the big challenge is in developing new packaging, in developing new logistics system, transport systems. This is something that we really need to do together and collaborate, co-create with other companies, with other entrepreneurs, and new technology that needs to be developed is the key for success. And yeah, well, as we say in IKEA, glorious future. Most things remain to be done. Thank you very much.
Per, thank you very much. I love that final slide. And what's exciting in this, I think, is that you're delivering change on the shop floor and with consumers, and it's really exciting to see some of the innovation and ideas being delivered in pilots and actual working systems. So thank you very much for opening up the sort of also the broader context within which packaging sits, because it is part of a whole system. And I'm sure many people will want to have further discussion and explore thoughts and ideas with you in the breakouts to come. There's only one thing between you and a breakout with Per, and that's our final speaker. I'm delighted that we've got representation from Stora Enso, which is a leading provider of renewable solutions in packaging, so is at the cutting edge of thought and ideas and delivery in this area. And I'm delighted that we're joined by Lisa Säfwenberg, who's the Manager Circular Solutions at Stora Enso Group. So really interested to hear what's keeping you excited, motivated at the cutting edge of renewable materials being used in circularity and packaging. So Lisa, great to have you with us and look forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you for that introduction. And thank you, everyone, for such inspiring slides so far. So, can you see my slide? Because I cannot see it.
Not yet.
Let's see.
Are you sharing or are we sharing?
Oh, I thought you were sharing. Maybe you should do that. I think that's quicker because I thought you had something.
No, we are not sharing. So
okay,
please
then I
share your presentation.
Then it's fine. Let's see. Share screen. Here we go. So now you see my screen. Do you see it?
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. So my name is Lisa Säfwenberg, and I am working at Stora Enso as manager for circular solutions, like we said. And I have been part of this company now since November last year. I'm based in UK, just because my husband got an opportunity here, so we moved here, and I actually got the opportunity to work towards Stora Enso Stockholm, but from here. So that's actually thanks to the pandemic that I could sit here. So it works perfectly fine. And I have a background of industrial design. I actually joined the IKEA school in Lund, Ingka Kamprad Design School. So that's a bit interesting to have you on board here. And so I worked within the industrial design field and graphics as self-employed. And then I have also a background within packaging and sustainability. So I have been part of the DS Smith packaging, which is a competitor of ours today, and also Axfood, which is a retail company. You could see there's shops as Willys or Hemköp. I work there with our own brands such as Garant, for example, and trying to make them more sustainable. And then a short time at Axel Johnson International, working as a project manager within sustainability. So I'm really excited to join this conference today. And let's take, so this is like really short. So Stora Enso is a leading global provider of renewable solutions in packaging, biomaterials, wood products, constructions, and paper. We are quite many, as you could see, 23,000, and we have sales in 50 countries. And we believe that everything that's made from fossil-based material today can be made from a tree tomorrow. So with our renewable and recyclable raw material, Stora Enso is in a quite unique position to drive this transition from a linear to a circular economy. And like many of you have already said, we are also very eager to collaborate with startups and other companies to together find interesting and sustainable solutions. So please heads up if you could see an opportunity to collaborate. So right now I'm monitoring a project called the Reusable Packaging Project, and the aim is to analyze the reusable packaging market and to understand the business models behind this, and to see if and how Stora Enso could contribute in this area. And one driver for this project is the legislation, which has also been mentioned here, where we could see more and more banning single-use items and plastics. Another driver for the project is this zero waste hierarchy. So we are, like many of you also, are trying to rethink the linear business models in order to reduce resources and waste. The project, I don't have too much to show now, like interesting images, but the project consists of one master thesis by two students trying to investigate these business models and see how Stora Enso should enter this. And looking at the legislation, also there's a market analysis that spreads all over the world to see what startups are coming in this area and how ready is the market for this and so on. And also we have some external collaborations already with companies who want to look into this. So I would know more in June when the deadline is of this, and please just connect with me if you want to know more in the future. This is a really cool product, I think, at least. It has not been launched. I think it's just about to be launched. It's called the DuraSense fiber mats, and it can be made of up to 98% wood pulp and only 2% polymer fibers. And it's supposed to replace EPS or any other foam material. So you would use it as cushioning or protection during transport. And I think what is good about it is that it's highly flexible, so it bounces back, and it can be recycled as paper. So you could put it in the paper recycling, and as far as I understood, the plastic and the paper is separated, and the wood pulp goes back into the loop again, and the plastic, I assume, would be burned up as it is today. But at least I think it's still interesting to that you could still put it in the paper recycling bin. And it's also cost competitive to traditional EPS foam. So I think this could be really interesting if you have any upcoming projects where you would like to reduce the EPS foam with something more sustainable. So we could have a look at it. Another project is this self-lead store. So I just wanted to show you that we also have really smart people working at Stora Enso looking at smart high-tech solutions. So this is one of our products called the self-lead store fridge, which is a service that enables unmanned and automated stores. And the items inside are tagged with RFID, and this is where the circularity comes in, I would say, so I will come back to that. But so that all sales and inventory are automated, and you could follow this into this self-lead platform. So it's quite a smart solution. This kind of, I think I wanted to show this kind of intelligent digital solution to show that We are very much working in this field because we think in order to be able to scale up circular solutions, we need these kind of digital solutions to make it work really. So this leads to next slide, because inside of these fridges, like I said, we have this RFID technology. So each item in here are tagged with the RFID tag, and we have our own product called Eco RFID tag, which is like any other such tag, but the difference here is that this consists of 0 plastics, and it can be recycled as paper, and it's cost competitive to any other. And one thing that I find really good is also that during production, normally you have some hazardous chemicals, whereas in this case you have 0. So this is also very interesting, I think, and we have this one in different shapes, so you could have it to your food tray, so it's microwave safe, or you could have it in a bottle, so it has that shape of a bottle cap, or a hanger, or whatever. So these are a few examples from Stora Enso to show how we are trying to contribute in this circular thinking. But I mean, it is very challenging, and especially for us, I mean, thinking about reusable packagings in fiber-based material, it's a bit of a challenge. We have seen a lot of these reusable systems in plastics, in metal, in glass, or whatever, because those materials, how do you say, last for longer, but they also have an end of life. So if we could find something interesting with fiber-based material or our other biocomposites, we think it could be very interesting. So please keep in touch if you find anything interesting and want to chat a bit more. Thank you.
Lisa, thank you very much. Very interesting to see some of the developments and some of the thinking going on in this field, and hopefully some people will want to connect with you to share that journey. Talking of shared journeys, thank you so much to all our presenters for stimulating some thoughts in some quite tight, short presentations. Our plan now is that we would like to invite our speakers, first of all, to, if you click on the right hand on the chat and then click into on the blue link, you should find your way to navigate to a breakout room with your name on it, and you can sit there and sit smiling as everybody else. Now, for about just under 20 minutes, you can choose one of our speakers to spend a little bit of time just having a chat with, exploring some ideas, whatever, building a new collaboration. I don't mind what. So for our participants, our delegates, what you need to do is to go back down to the main conference program for the day, and you'll see a participatory interaction, join Zoom meeting, click on that, and that will give you a choice of speakers for you to be able to interact with. That's going to happen through for about till about 2:20, and then we'll come back for just some final blue skies thinking about maybe what's just over the horizon. So if speakers and delegates can make their choices, and if there are any problems, we will try to help you out. But we'll see you back here in about 20 minutes time after you've had the breakouts. So welcome back from the breakouts. We hope that you managed to navigate your way towards Breakout and have a chance to chat with one of the speakers. And more significantly, you managed to navigate your way back. Technology once again proves that if you have to do anything more than 2 clicks, that's beyond most human beings' imaginings. But our speakers have made it back, which is fantastic. We've only got a few moments, but I really just wanted to just get a reflection from our speakers. First of all, was anything in the discussions and the questions that you had in your breakouts that you just wanted to maybe bring out that's maybe an interesting perspective or a challenge or whatever around the topic of circular packaging challenge? Does anyone just wave a hand in the air? If yeah, Mats, do you want to start?
Well, we did go a little bit off script when it comes to what topics we talked about, but I think one general observation, apart from the fact that conferences like these have grown exponentially, both in number and size, over the past, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years that some of us have been working with circular economy. You could, back in the days, kind of cover everything, know everyone and so on. And you can't do that anymore. And this conference is a proof of that. But it is that with packaging as well as other things, if we are to manage more circular models, more circular offerings, more circular products, it is likely also going to increase the complexity of these products and these materials and components. And that is a huge challenge, both during service life, but also at the end of service life. And I think that, whenever it is possible, because we're kind of coming from an extremely complex system at the moment, we're doing, I guess, doing our best when it comes to packaging, but we're facing this challenge of being able to treat it simply because it is so complex. So whenever it is possible to simplify, use homogeneous materials rather than heterogeneous materials, use less combinations rather than more combinations, even if you want to, you're itching and your engineering brain is, wants to do the more complex thing, wants to do the more sophisticated thing. Think again about what is best for the system, would maybe be my input.
Right. Okay. No, thank you for that. Anything from, Per?
We're not so super structured in our team, but a couple of thoughts after the discussions we had. One was around LCA and how that tool is equipped to a circular economy or not. It was developed in a linear system, so how can LCA develop and be a tool for circularity as well? We talked also about how to make offer and demand meet. One of the reasons why we have 14% only recycling rate is that it seems that the demand and the offer is not really meeting each other. So the requirements that you might have from the producer perspective doesn't really cater for what is offered on the market. So that there's need of dialogue and development of different standards, I would say. And then we discussed also briefly about food, which is an issue if you want to substitute maybe for food packaging, and looking on what is ongoing there as well as alternative materials. So that's
right.
A report from our group.
And Lisa, anything in particular emerged from any conversations you had?
Well, we discussed actually how to filter water. So that was a bit out of the theme, but in general, some comments. I was just really glad to hear Per from IKEA also explaining how much you need to collaborate with your customers in order to understand these new business models and to really come up with something interesting, because sometimes it seems like we think we can create some general solution that would work for everyone, but I think definitely we have to dive into different customers and really explore things together with them. So that was a really good, well, that appeals to me at least. Thank you for that.
Okay. I've really just got one, maybe just one final question for all four of you. Maybe it's an unfair one. It feels as though we're, right now grappling with all sorts of clever and complex conversations about repackaging, reusing, new materials, all the rest of it, all kind of predicated on the fact that if the consumer wants it, somehow we deliver it, and increasingly deliver it to their door in a safe and whole way. And there's obviously this is going to run and run in terms of clever solutions, all the rest of it. I do just wonder, I'm just wondering what the next agenda is going to be, or is this the end of history, that we kind of work out how to do it, circularity, or I'm wondering what the theme in maybe 5-6 years time is going to be, that it might be worth us just sort of having a little inkling of a thought about now, because it's going to come down the road. Like some people were shouting, if we have a pandemic, our economy is going to be in a hell of a mess, and so is our society. I just wonder whether in the world you inhabit, what might be the thing just over the horizon that we maybe need to start drawing into our consciousness, because it might help us reframe a little bit some of the work that we are currently doing. Who would like to go? Tell me if it's an unfair question, or maybe give me a beyond the horizon answer. Peter.
Well, yes, it is an unfair question. And before anything else, I would like to address, I'm a little bit worried about your cat. It doesn't seem to move.
Yeah, no, she is, if it's a poor presentation, she walks out of the room. So you're on.
Okay, thank you. So then, to me, it's reuse, and I think the next step for this is very hard to tell what will happen and how to adapt. This is such a massive change that needs to be done. I'm very inspired by IKEA, start to think about it, and we're trying to grasp the concept as well. And the other part, I think, is what is perhaps a little bit lacking now is behavioral science, for instance. We all know that this is all our efforts. They're going to be futile unless we can sort of connect with IKEA as their consumers and consumers generally. So behavioral science as a part of the circular economy, circular plastic packaging or packaging discussion, I think will be the next step.
Okay, that's interesting.
Can I add a comment?
Lisa, please.
Yeah, so I also find this behavior aspect very interesting. Once thinking about this reusable packaging system, which I'm working with right now. So, and I think one challenge, at least when you're looking at the business to consumer business models, is actually how to make the consumer, like the end consumer, to do what we want them to do. I mean, we are all lazy human beings and we do what's easiest for us. So there should be it should be super easy for the customer to do right. And also what's the trigger for the customer to return a packaging or whatever? Is it a voucher of this amount of money? Is it some kind of punt system, or what is it? So I think, and also if you look at it, if you have lots of different companies providing reusable packaging, then as a customer in your home, you have several packagings that should be returned to different areas and in different ways. Or could you scale it up so you collaborate with PostNord or whoever to kind of make it easier for the end consumer. So I think that's a challenge.
Okay, I like it. Thank you very much. Matt?
I'm going to go next because I need to bow out. I'm already late for a meeting, so okay. Sorry for being blunt. But I'd like to also go broad and by saying that the next pandemic in the circular economy world, I think, is the question of the circular bioeconomy, which ties into the growing awareness of the role of biodiversity, the growing, I should say, urgency when it comes to the underlying productivity of our land and water systems. There was one estimate a few years ago that suggested we have about 60 years left of harvests before the topsoil is eroded. And this is due to basically the way we do agriculture today. Huge monocultural industrialized systems, good at producing what we desire, but only because we feed it with a lot of sort of non-organic production factors. When it comes to mechanization and fertilization, these factors also contribute to that huge footprint, carbon footprint that goes into the food, forcing us to package the food really well in order for it to not cost us so much carbon when it's wasted. So if you imagine that we had a tomato that didn't swallow X liters of oil and fertilizer to make, wasting that tomato wouldn't be that much of an issue from a carbon point of view, and the equation for packaging complexity, packaging recyclability would look different. So I think addressing the fundamental food production and other biological production systems that basically quite literally feed our economy is for me the next big thing in circular economy, and it ties into so many of the other design decisions and business decisions that we make.
Mm. Mats, you must go. Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed for that intervention and for your earlier talk. That's great. Per, you already spend your time looking over the horizon. I'm now asking you to look over the horizon with a pair of binoculars.
I'll try. First of all, I agree on what the other speaker said, very relevant points, and especially Mats on the limits that we are already over when it comes to soil and chemical circles. But time, I think, Peter, time is super important. We have less than 10 years to reach the goals that we have set off in Paris, and circular economy is super important on that. So I would say scale up, scale up, scale up, scale up. Volume. Okay. We need that. One additional point is the social part of circular economy, which I think has been sort of being there, but not really talked so much about. I mean, it's a huge transition. A lot of people will be affected, need a just transition to circular economy. So that would be my binocular perspective, really, to use this opportunity also for social questions, not only for environmental and economic reasons.
Really interesting. Thank you. Can I just I'm just going to throw one final fly in the ointment and just get a reaction. The people involved in the packaging world are doing the most extraordinary job innovating to satisfy the needs of the producer, the retailer, the consumer. If I want it on my doorstep, I want it to be come in a safe. I want it to come tomorrow. I want to be able to send it back. I just wonder, and there's a cost involved. There are a whole set of costs, and yes, we can use renewable packaging. Yes, we can cut down on plastic, but we're still having this just extraordinary flow of largely irrelevant stuff at a whim. And I just wonder whether the packaging world, as well as finding the solutions, has a role in being a whistleblower and saying this is daft. We've got to stop this finding solutions for people to get whatever they want from wherever they want tomorrow in a safe way. And I suppose that's my over the horizon one is, do we just continue like the sorcerer's apprentice, satisfying the consumer need and trying to come up with clever solutions that reduce the footprint? Or do we have an opportunity or responsibility to say, hang on a minute, the whole consumption cycle is leading us down a bad path? Does anyone just want to call me out or respond to what I'm saying? Peter, you're never short of an observation.
Well, difficult question, actually. So I would say I'm looking at my hero, my grandmother. She passed away in 1999, 2 months from being 100 years old. She never threw away a thing. Okay, that's interesting. Not even gift wraps. She took care of them. Right, and then we have a couple of spoiled generations, us included, me included, going from a consumer to a consumer bonanza. And then at least I put some big hope in the next generation, because they are thinking differently. So they can lead in the change of how we think about consummation and how we behave. Perhaps we'll go back to my grandma in the way of thinking, knitting socks, and that's the observation.
Okay, yeah. Lisa, do you want to just offer a response to my challenge?
No, now I started thinking about this nice idea that Peter has of thinking about how our old loved ones actually act. And even my mother does. She's not that old. And she also saves everything. Well, I lost track a bit of your original question, actually. I started spinning away.
It was actually saying, look, is it time for the packaging world, who knows just what an intensive activity it is, to call out rampant consumption, stop finding solutions, and actually be part of the hang on a minute, we're going to hell on a handcart.
I definitely think so. And I was thinking about this particularly in another job I had, where the customer was very much used to have their delivery really fast, and they didn't care about how it was delivered, actually, how the transport looked like. It was just supposed to be quick. But then we discussed, okay, so we should split the deliveries into, this is very crucial, they need it really fast, or this is actually okay if it takes a little longer. So we should discuss a bit more with the customer and offer different options, I think. Like, this is the more sustainable transport, maybe. It takes a little longer, but then you make a good choice for the environment, for example. So I was just thinking about this transport issue.
Yeah, all right. We're out of time. Per, do you want to just offer a final word?
Yeah, well, Lisa was on to what I was about to just say. I think definitely we have a role in transparency, and we have as well a role in nudging towards a more sustainable choice for this. And it's a tough one, because it has been used as competitive advantage for so long time. So but transparency and nudging, that's my my point.
Brilliant. Per, Lisa, Peter, and also Mats, Anne and Tatjana, thank you for an incredibly stimulating session. Once again, we wish you well in your spheres to be disruptors, pioneers, antagonists, solutions bringers. Hopefully all of you who've participated in this session will have drawn some thoughts and ideas about the march of circularity in the whole world of packaging. But thank you all very much for your participation, and do have another short break, and then we just have a final session, maintaining momentum, and we will finish well on time, if not a little bit early. So enjoy a short break, and we'll see you back for the final session. Thank you all very much.
Bye.